All right. All right. Well, we are starting to have folks join our webinar. Seeing those numbers rise. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. We're really excited to have you all here. I'm going to give it a little time to let folks get into the webinar, and then we will go ahead and get started with some introductions. All right. We got a good group coming in. Okay, great. We're about a minute or two after. We're starting to slow down a little bit on the participants, so I'm gonna have us go ahead and start introducing ourselves. Love the hearts, love the celebrations. Everyone's excited to be here. I'm excited to be here. My name is Emily Coffey. I'm a Senior Assistant Director of Admission at Northwestern. I'm also the director of our tour guide program, and I'm a graduate of Northwestern. I myself applied early decision to Northwestern many years ago, and I'm excited to be here with you all. I graduated in 2020, obviously loved it so much I decided to turn talking about it into a job, so that's what I'm here to do today. But I'll go ahead and let our students introduce themselves as well. Let's start with Talia, and then we can kind of popcorn around.
Hey everyone, I'm Talia. I am a senior currently, which is crazy. I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm studying political science, global health, and data science here at Northwestern.
Lily, yeah, go for it.
Hi everybody. I'm a graduate admissions counselor here at Northwestern. I actually just graduated in June with a double major in theater and computer science, and I'm currently pursuing a graduate degree in animation at DePaul. But I love also, like Emily, love Northwestern so much that I also decided to turn talking about it into a job. And I was a tour guide for 4 years, and I obviously love Northwestern so much. I'm so excited to answer all of your questions.
Hi, my name's Eloise. I am a psychology and music double major with a minor in creative writing. I'm a senior, and yeah, I'm a senior counselor here in the admissions office.
Hi guys, my name is Ariana. I'm also a senior. I'm studying economics and doing a double minor in business institutions and then also art theory and practice. And I'm originally from Watchung, New Jersey, and I'm also a tour guide and senior counselor on campus.
So some of you'll notice we can't use the chat here, so you put your questions, any questions that you have about Northwestern, the Northwestern experience, the admissions process, anything like that, into the Q&A, and we'll do a live Q&A here in just a moment. I'm just going to kind of touch on some of our deadlines to get a few reminders out there. So all of you are joining the early decision panel, so you know that we know you're focused on early decision and thinking about it a little bit. Just a quick reminder that the early decision deadline is November 1st. That's the deadline that we expect you to have your materials in by. So anything that's coming from you, your essays, your activities, any resumes you're uploading, kind of all of those pieces that are from your end, we expect you to have that in by then. If you have anything that's coming late from other people, if your recommendations are a couple days late, if your transcript is a little slow from your high school, all of that is okay. Just need to make sure you have your information in by November 1st. Financial aid information will be due December 1st. As a reminder, we are a school that takes both the FAFSA and the CSS profiles. So the FAFSA will probably hopefully open around December 1st. If it's a little bit delayed, it's all good because we have the CSS profile. So we'll still be able to get you a financial aid package, even if you're applying early decision, because we have that CSS profile option. So application materials are due November 1st. Financial materials are due December 1st. You'll hear back from us around December 15th. We're on the Common Application, Coalition Application, and we're a part of QuestBridge as well. No preference between those. So if you have any kind of additional questions about admissions, happy to answer those. But I'm excited to have you all here today to just learn a little bit more about Northwestern and maybe think a little bit about what it is like to be a student at Northwestern. So let's kind of get into the Q&A here and see what kinds of questions we have going on. So a question about the art program at Northwestern. Someone mentioned they were in art theory and practice. Yes?
I'm minoring in art theory and practice.
Awesome.
And I absolutely love the program. I did studio art kind of all throughout my life when I was younger, and I definitely didn't know that this was something I wanted to study or like even knew it was an option at Northwestern. But basically, the program, you can be either a minor or a major, and you take studio classes and a couple art history classes. It's a ton of fun. I think it's a great, like, I think this also speaks to the fact that a lot of the students at Northwestern are very multifaceted because you'll find people studying things from a ton of different disciplines. I think if you're interested in applying, I don't think it's necessary to like upload a portfolio. I think you can like as a supplemental thing if you want, but it's not necessary. And I know a ton of people who came to Northwestern and had never done art in their life and then took a couple classes and just loved it and ended up declaring it. But I think the thing that's unique about art at Northwestern is it's not just one specific discipline like it might be at some formal art schools. You can take like I've taken like film photography, I've taken painting, sculpture, and I've gotten to dabble in a ton of those different things.
You kind of talking about, experiencing a lot of different types of academics at Northwestern. A little bit, sometimes we like to talk about applying our learning outside of the classroom, and one of the ways we do that is by talking about study abroad. Has anyone had any abroad experiences here? Awesome, Eloise, you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, so actually just earlier this year, I participated in like a Northwestern affiliated study abroad program in Madrid. It was so much fun. Basically, I was like taking classes with other international students. Yeah, and it was a program focused on like psychology, which is my major, and also like people who are interested in business. And yeah, it was an incredible experience, but definitely recommend. But we also have study abroad that's like kind of just Northwestern students going abroad. And yeah, it's offered every quarter, including like in the summer. Yeah, I had a great experience.
Um, Pivoting a little bit, we have some questions about kind of campus and like what is the best, two questions. What's the best thing about Northwestern's location? And any thoughts on kind of like northern versus southern end of campus? Anyone wanna tackle these?
I can talk about North versus South campus because I lived in both and I also lived off campus. So I pretty much had like every possible living experience. It's a bit of the nitty gritty, but I would say in general, South campus, it kind of has a reputation of being a little bit more maybe reserved than North campus, which is very social. I would say genuinely like the stereotypes, they hold true to a certain extent. I'm so sorry. There's a siren outside. I hope it's not distracting. Um, yeah, in general, I would say that, but it's also definitely still possible to make friends. If you live South Campus, I would definitely not worry about that if you do choose to live South. When I live South, I live in Allison, which was like a big dorm that we have here, and I made like plenty of friends like on my floor. Personally, I like living North because I'm a very social person. So that was very nice, but I also know people who prefer living South. So it's really all about just your personal preference. And yeah, and it also you can look at kind of like your proximity to classes. A lot of the more like STEM classes, like the ones that engineers have to take, especially in this big building we have called Tech, that will be closer to North Campus. But if you're more interested in like arts, like for example, I'm in the Bean School of Music, so I have a lot of classes there. Or if you're in theater, those tend to be more like South Campus. So it really just depends on your own personal preferences where you want to live.
I'll also add to that. I think for me, it was really important because I also lived North freshman year and South sophomore year. It's like, do you want to be really close to coffee shops? Because if you're on the south end of campus, you're less than a 5-minute walk away from everything in Evanston. And if you're on the north end, you're really close to all the athletic fields and the gym facilities. So that's also something to take into account when you're kind of deciding where you might want to live.
And like residential community, obviously, we have 26 residences on campus, so students definitely, can find a lot of community in their residential halls or residential colleges. Can y'all speak a little bit to kind of the social scene at Northwestern, like what kinds of extracurriculars you're involved in, any experience with fraternity and sorority life, if that's kind of impactful of the social scene? Maybe start with Ariana and we can kind of go around if other folks have.
Yeah, on campus, I'm involved with a couple of the business clubs, including like a business fraternity, which isn't exactly like like Greek sororities and fraternities. But I think like the main way that I've found kind of social connections is through joining clubs. And I'm not in Greek life, but a couple of my friends are. And I think at Northwestern, it's definitely not something that you need to be a part of, but if you want to be a part of, it is there, and it's a great way to meet new people. I think like the general environment of Northwestern is that it's super inclusive. So I am friends with like a lot of people in Greek life, and so are, you know, a lot of people who aren't in Greek life, which is a great thing, I think, about campus.
Any other thoughts, kind of extracurricular are a part of, or any kind of other pieces of the social scene you want to shout
I
out?
think what's really great about Northwestern is that like Ariana was saying, like Greek life isn't like a necessary part of the social scene on campus. And because of that, more often than not, the extracurriculars that you're involved in are going to have their own social scenes. For like, I knew a lot of band kids who were in the marching band, and they had their own like events and like parties on the weekends and things like that. Same thing with the theater students. And so whatever extracurriculars you're in really do affect like the kind of social events that you're invited to and the things that you participate in, just in your social life in general. And that's definitely not limited to Greek life only on campus.
So thinking a little bit about kind of your academic experiences, we have a couple people who double major. Can you guys talk a little bit about the kind of flexibility of double majoring at Northwestern? Talia, I see you nodding. You want to take that on?
Sure, yeah, I can. So I have a double major and a minor, and I think Northwestern, I know we'll get to this later, but one of the reasons why I chose to apply ED was because of the quarter system's flexibility. And so I will say that, you know, like having a double major and a minor seems daunting when you kind of come at it from the beginning. But when you like look at my class schedule, I have about 36 classes that I need to take for my major. And that means I have like 12 to 15 where I can just pick and choose kind of random classes that I want to take because I want to take them. And I will say, you know, majoring in political science and global health has been an awesome experience. And also, like, a lot of the classes do overlap. So it's really been nice for me to major in two things, kind of have all those separate classes, but be able like to unite them with like a larger theme. And I would say that, I mean, of course you are adding like stress to your course load, but it's by no means too much. Like I will say from firsthand experience, it's been a great experience. And I wouldn't have done it any other way. I think without having my second major, I just wouldn't have had the same experience in college as a whole. So it's like great to just have that flexibility and the ability to have a double major without having to stay an extra year, which is really nice.
That a little more on the quarter system. Eloise, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of adjusting to the quarter system, and then a little bit about just the general academic culture at Northwestern, like, you know, being collaborative versus a little more competitive, or kind of what that general experience feels like?
Oh, for sure, yeah. The quarter system, so basically the way it works is that we have 3 terms a year versus 2. Personally, I really like it because, like Talia, I'm also a double major, and it's actually allowed me to explore both my majors fully. Honestly, I am a senior and I'm still not sure which of the 2 I kind of want to pursue more after I graduate, but thanks to Northwestern, I've been able to pursue both of them as fully as I wanted when I was an undergrad. Um, I would definitely say, I would actually go so far as to say, the collaborative nature of Northwestern students is something that makes it, honestly really special. I would definitely still say that ambitious is a word to definitely describe a lot of Northwestern students, but we don't necessarily compare ourselves. I will say, like, from personal experience, like I don't really know the grades of like my friends or my colleagues because it doesn't really matter to me, and they also don't really care about my grades. Like, people aren't really comparing each other like that, but they are here to support you. People are willing to like reference you to other people, and yeah, I would say it's actually a great strength of Northwestern.
Awesome. So there's some just like logistical admissions questions I want to answer, and then we can get back to the fun ones. Question about the December 1st financial deadline. So I mentioned that the FAFSA is supposed to open December 1st this year. Our December 1st deadline is for the CSS profile. The FAFSA will kind of push off that deadline as we need to. That's what we did last year. And again, we'll kind of create your financial aid package based on the CSS profile. If we don't have the FAFSA quite yet, we'll just need you to turn that in eventually to get the federal funding. In terms of our essays, so we do have an optional personal statement. You're welcome to send in that personal statement and we'll review that kind of as a supplemental material, can help us get to know you a little bit better. But you're also welcome to use parts of that personal statement for your one required supplement as well, which is why we've kind of made it optional. We know our required supplement might overlap with some of the topics y'all have chosen for your personal statement. So that's the reasoning there. I got some questions about SAT scores. We are test optional at Northwestern. About a third of Northwestern's class last year was test optional. So you're applying along with a good group of people if you're applying test optional to Northwestern. There are some differences between early and regular decision. I have some questions in the Q&A about kind of the difference in admit rate. Last year we had about 5,000 students who applied early decision, and we usually take around half of our class, which is about 1,000 students every year. And the next 45,000 students applied in regular decision. So it's a big difference in the number of students who are applying along with you. And that's why I encourage students, if you're like the 5 of us here and Northwestern is, the #1 school for you, it makes the most sense for you geographically, socially, academically, financially, all of these things kind of match for you. Early decision is a really great option, if anything, just because you're applying with that smaller pool. Okay, so those were some of the kind of logistical admissions things. Do feel free to keep throwing admissions questions in there if you have them, but hopefully answered some of your questions. Some questions about the art scene on campus and the ability to engage in theater as a non-theater major. Lily, you want to touch on some of that?
Absolutely. So for any of our theater productions on campus, anyone can audition. You don't have to be a theater major. This is true for every type of production, whether it be our student-led productions or our more professional style productions that go through our Wirt Center. The theater scene on campus is split into 2 kind of areas. One is Wirt, which is, like I said, our professional style productions. Your directors are going to be like either professionals or some of our professors or some of our master's students, while our STUCO, our Student Theater Coalition, is done completely through students. All of the set design, lighting design, costume design, as well as producing, fight directing, as well as acting, are all done by students. So if you're interested in any kind of that area of theater as well, that's also something that's very open to you. But there are like 3 performances that happen like every single weekend. It will be less of a, oh, is there any theater or dance or performance happening this weekend, and more of how can I fit as many as possible into my limited weekend free time.
Expanding on clubs, we have over 700 clubs at Northwestern, which is a whole lot of student organizations. Between 35 and 40 or so of those a year are club sports. Is anyone a part of club sports on campus or can speak to it a little bit? Talia? Nodding, yes. maybe?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I'm a part of the women's club soccer team. And honestly, that has been one of the greatest parts of my Northwestern experience because, starting here as a freshman, I knew quite literally no one, like not one person at Northwestern. Yeah. So you get to the school and just to like have a team is so nice. And they really range based on the sport, how competitive they are, whether there are tryouts or not. But just having a team in college is such a fantastic environment to be a part of. It was really enabled me to get to know people who are juniors and seniors and kind of get that like mentorship that I didn't have, from like an older sibling or something like that. So I highly recommend it if you're interested. And I also will say, like, I have just as much fun playing intramural sports. So if you're someone who, is just like looking to get out once a week and play, that's really fun. And I know like my freshman year, my like freshman floor of my dorm made a team. And so that's just a great way to like get to know people and just kind of have fun with like no stress on your shoulders.
Some questions about our location. So I did want to note out loud that we live on campus for 2 years at Northwestern. After that, you're welcome to move off campus, and a fair amount of students do choose to live in Evanston, which I think kind of adds to our college town vibe, which is kind of nice. Eloise, you want to talk a little bit about Evanston and Chicago, kind of the experiences there?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like Northwestern offers a lot of like research opportunities and internships in Chicago. We have the Purple Line, which is like this train line that goes like straight from Northwestern campus to downtown Chicago. So it's available via public transportation. You can also get an Uber there for a certain amount of money. And yeah, a lot of like people will go to Chicago, like not even just for like pre-professional opportunities, even though a lot of people do that. Like for example, I know lot of like my friends who are like pre-med will do things at like Feinberg, for example, which is our medical school, which is located in Chicago. And also a lot of like social activities will happen there, like just for anyone who like misses living in a big city. I grew up in San Francisco, so I definitely have experienced that at Northwestern, and we kind of get to have that also by being so close to Chicago.
Some questions about research opportunities at Northwestern. Anyone have experience with research here, or want to share a little bit about someone else's?
So I'm not specifically involved in research right now, but there's a ton of opportunities for research at Northwestern. It is a tier 1 research institution, and a lot of my great friends have pursued research. One of my best friends is a biomedical engineer, and she got involved with one of the labs on campus. I have a ton of pre-med friends who are also involved with research, not only at the undergraduate school of Northwestern, but also the Feinberg School of Medicine, which is also a great opportunity. But not just that, like research at Northwestern is definitely not limited to just like the STEM majors and what people kind of expect out of traditional research. There's basically research in almost every single discipline that's offered at Northwestern. And one of the unique things that I am thinking about doing is an honors thesis, which is with the economics program. And I know a ton of different majors also have that, which is where your senior year, you can choose a professor to advise you on research of your own choosing, not just what might be going on with like a grad student. And then finally, on top of that, there's a ton of different research grants on campus that allow students to do research both during the year and during the summer. And there's just a ton of funding for students, both like specifically for undergraduates, to pursue research on campus.
Similar vein, anyone have some internship experiences or can speak a little bit to the support that you can get at Northwestern for career and internships? Talia, again.
Yeah, I can take that one on. We have this really great program called Chicago Field Studies here at Northwestern. And so basically what that means is instead of taking classes for a quarter, you would go, you get an internship, and then that internship will count for course credit, which is really nice. It's like a, like a freebie 4.0 GPA quarter. And so for me, I did an internship with a government consulting agency. And so we did a lot of work talking with a whole bunch of different industries about how we could help them, get legislation passed that would be like helpful to them. And that was really interesting. It was the first time I had ever worked 9 to 5. And so that's just a huge experience in and of itself. And it was great to have that first experience with the backing of Northwestern. Northwestern, the advisors through CFS helped me find the internship. They prepared me for my interviews. They helped me prepare my resume. And then like during it, like I had my advisor checking in every couple of weeks, making sure it was going well. And really by the end of it, I was so much more comfortable in a working environment. And I think it would have been a much different experience if I had just kind of jumped in without the support of CFS behind me, Chicago Field Studies.
About 2/3 of Northwestern students will typically do an internship while they're at our campus, just so everyone knows. Eloise, you have some fans in the Q&A interested in the beat-in process, the audition process, and everything like that, and just kind of balancing both beat-in and other schools.
Oh, sure. I'm happy to talk about that. So yeah, the way the bean and admissions process is, it's different to the rest of schools, where basically you have like a 2-stage audition. First, for early decision, I believe the deadline is sometime in October, where you're going to send in like pre-screening material, which is basically it should be on the website, like specific requirements for like what kind of materials you have to submit. It's different for every instrument, for every major. And then based on that, it will be reviewed by the department. For example, if you're applying into strings, which is what I did originally, you'll be reviewed by the strings department, and then they'll decide whether or not they want to invite you to audition. I remember when I auditioned, it was sometime over Thanksgiving break, just to give you all a sense of the timeline. And then after that, you'll find out whether or not you were accepted the same time as everyone else. So on when early decision results come out, or regular if you're applying regular. And yeah, so I applied into Northwestern dual degree. So I was specifically a viola performance major, as well as undecided in Weinberg. So basically the way that worked was I was taking like the core Bienen classes while also having to fulfill those Weinberg requirements. And it is quite a few classes. I think in total it's about like 60 credits, which will, if you do 4 credits a quarter, it is 5 years. So 5 years is kind of standard for the dual degree program. However, I know a lot of people get it done in 4 years. So it's definitely possible. You can still graduate on time. I know I have friends who are currently on that timeline. So yeah, it's like you kind of basically you're taking Bienen classes and Weinberg classes like every quarter. It's like you're kind of getting both experiences. Yeah, did I answer every part of that question?
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. Thank you. Yeah.
About missing anything.
No, I think that was great. Yeah. You know, kind of highlighting especially how that dual degree works. If, you know, you're kind of mixing it together. It's not all focusing on one, all focusing on the other, but the class is kind of happening simultaneously as you go. Ariana, you mentioned business institutions, right? Yeah. We have some questions about economics and business in the Q&A, as well as the garage, if you have kind of any experience with the garage.
Yeah, I mean, I have loved my experience with both the economics and business institutions programs. I think a couple people had questions on what it's like to be like pursuing a career in business without having an undergraduate business program. And first of all, we do have the business institutions minor. So you get to take core classes like accounting, marketing, and corporate finance and pair that with whatever major you choose. For me, it's economics. And I really think that it's such an amazing opportunity to have the like internship and career advising resources that Northwestern has, while also being able to pursue a liberal arts education. I think with my economics classes, I've learned so much about random different industries. Like I'm taking economics of transportation this quarter, which I think is so unique. And I don't think that like that might be offered at some school where, you know, the only major is finance. And so I think being able to take classes like that and pair it with like the business institutions has been really helpful for trying to pursue a career in finance. I'm not actually involved with the garage, but for those of you who don't know, the garage is our on-campus startup incubator, but I do have friends who have been involved. Essentially, it's basically a place where students who are interested in entrepreneurship can build their own company. And I have a ton of friends who have gone through the garage, and you are able to receive funding through the garage, mentorship from previous students and alumni who have founded their own successful companies. And it's a really great opportunity for those of you who have great ideas and want to see it throughout Northwestern.
Some questions in the chat about our supplemental essays and just kind of how best to represent yourself in those supplemental essays. I think that this is a really good moment for you to not only be able to share a little bit about yourself and kind of help us hear your voice a little bit and see where you've been coming from, but also for us to get a chance for you to really talk about how your strengths and your goals are really going to be best realized at a place like Northwestern, and why that is. Not necessarily, you know, just listing the classes or the professors you think you'll be interested in. All of that is great, but I think a good way to think about that fit is kind of how do my strengths overlap with Northwestern strengths, and how do I see the resources and the support or the campus culture or whatever it is, anything, you know, even the things you're hearing tonight from our current students, why does that resonate with you and kind of your goals for college? I think this is a really good place to get that message across to us. So I think that that's something that can absolutely be standout. in those applications. Some other questions about the difference between ED and RD. So like I mentioned, early decision, you're applying with a much smaller pool. As a reminder for everybody, early decision is a binding decision. So if you're applying early to Northwestern, you, your parent or guardian, and your college counselor all sign an agreement that says, if I get into Northwestern, I will attend Northwestern. So it's a binding agreement. You receive the same financial aid between early decision and regular decision. We're 100% need-based, and we meet 100% of demonstrated needs. So whichever round you're a part of, you're getting the same amount of financial aid. Kind of the only reason we'd release a student from the early decision agreement is if we can't get enough financial aid for you to make Northwestern financially tenable for you and your family. That happens to very few students every year. So I would definitely encourage you to do some research on what our financial aid looks like. Use our My Intuition calculator on our website and get a sense for what your financial aid is going to look like kind of before applying to Northwestern early decision. The differences between them, the pool size, like I mentioned, 5,000 in early, 45,000 in regular decision. Other than that, and then the agreement level, the binding agreement level, and then obviously the timeline. Those are the differences. The similarities are the application requirements, the things you have to turn in, the admissions criteria. So the stuff that gets you into Northwestern is the same between early and regular decision. And then the financial aid is going to be the same as well. So a lot of that's the same, but some that's different as well. I think we can kind of start getting into a little bit of our early decision discussion and kind of the things that made you all choose Northwestern early decision. There are definitely a lot of questions about kind of research opportunities and academics and culture and clubs and everything. And we've been talking about a lot of the stuff y'all do on campus. So I guess my question is kind of like, what are the things that you've found on Northwestern's campus that really reaffirmed that decision of like this, it was a good decision to apply early decision? Yeah, Lily, go for it.
I think like I'm from the area, and one of my biggest concerns, like I was looking at schools in like the UK. I wanted to go far away, and that was like a big thing for me. And I almost didn't apply early decision to Northwestern. I actually switched my early decision like 2 weeks before the deadline, which was crazy and very stressful. But I'm very glad that I did do it because I realized Northwestern had everything I was looking for. And I think the thing that really affirmed that for me when I was on campus is that I switched my double major 3 times throughout my entire career here at Northwestern. I was psychology in theater, I was neuroscience in theater, and then I was computer science in theater. I had never taken a computer science class before I attended Northwestern, and like Northwestern giving me the academic flexibility to not only pursue everything I was interested in, but also to explore new interests and eventually let me major in a new interest is just something that really solidified that Northwestern was really the only place that could let me do everything that I wanted to do.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like we've touched a lot on kind of the ability to double major and everything. And there are some kind of features of Northwestern's like values that I think represent that. Does anyone have any thoughts on kind of the and is in our DNA of it all? Like how that, the good and bad, kind of how you see that culture on our campus?
Yeah, I can take this one. I feel like something also is like for that last question is just the passion of the students at Northwestern. And I think that really goes into the and is in our DNA because like people on my floor freshman year, they were like a mechanical engineer. And then I would go and I would watch my friends in Boom Shaka, which is a percussion and dance group on campus. Yes, alum. So it's just I got here and my eyes just opened. I realized, wow, people can one, be so talented and work so hard at multiple different things and not feel like they're boxed into one place just because maybe that's what you think you're good at or what your parents want you to study. So I think just the ability to do multiple things, and then that's just like compounded with the drive of the students here. I think those are just really two important factors. And I know this is the kind of the downside of and is in our DNA is it's hard to say no when you have so many opportunities. I think like when I give advice to incoming students and to any college, it's like you're gonna have to say no sometimes and you're gonna have to learn that that's okay. But what's great is that I have to say no so many times because there are so many awesome opportunities, things that I never would have done, because a random friend of mine is involved with something super obscure that I never would have thought of. And now all of a sudden I'm in this situation, I'm an extra for a movie, and it's just like I never would have been here if not for Northwestern, which is super cheesy now that that just came out of my mouth, but yeah.
Yeah, take it. Yeah, Louise.
Yeah, I would definitely piggyback on everything Talia just said. I really came into Northwestern having no idea what I wanted to pursue. And I've always felt really grateful for the fact that Northwestern, at no point did they force me to choose. Like even when they were forcing me to pick my major, it's like there's always that option that I can still do other things. I can still add a double major and a minor. And there's really this culture that encourages that sort of thing rather than trying to like pigeonhole people into one specific identity. And I will say that just for my own personal identity development, that has been something that I'm incredibly grateful for. And yeah, just the fact that Northwestern encourages that so much and that it's so core to who we are.
Yeah, I think what I think is cool about that is it's in Northwestern's culture, but it's also baked into our structure, right? Like there are parts of Northwestern's academic structure that make it more flexible. Not only the quarter system, but also kind of like our core like the curricula that are across kind of the 6 schools. Ariana, and feel free to kind of like touch on some of stuff we've been talking about of like what you found to be true after applying ED, but do you want to talk a little bit about kind of the Weinberg like model and a little bit about what that core curriculum feels like?
Yeah, so I think one of my favorite things about Northwestern actually is that we don't have a core set of classes that every student has to take. Instead, we have this program called Foundational Disciplines, in which Weinberg students have to take, I believe, 2 classes within each foundational discipline. So for example, some of the foundational disciplines include like natural sciences, fine arts and literature, social sciences, and I think this allows for a really, really well-rounded education where not only are you just taking classes in your majors and minors and certificates, but you're also taking classes for topics that you might be interested in, but maybe you don't want to major in. And I think looking back at my time at Northwestern, some of my favorite classes have been through this like foundational discipline program. I've taken like Asian American literature. This quarter, I'm taking Russian literature, and you really just get the best experience because you learn about so many different disciplines without having to necessarily major or study them. And it really provides like a very well-rounded education because even though I might not be like a literature or a science major, it provides me the opportunity to develop my like critical thinking skills, my ability to write. And I just really love some of the classes that I've taken because of the foundational disciplines.
Yeah, we love the liberal arts. Yes, this is all really I think indicative of kind of Northwestern's community. What are some of the sorry, I'm kind of trying to decide where we should go next. We have a lot of good questions in the Q&A. I guess I'll ask actually a pretty straightforward question that has come up a couple of times. I'm going to ask Eloise because you're from San Francisco, although San Francisco can be kind of cold too. What's the, that change coming from California? I was originally from California too. The weather in Chicago. What do we think about the weather in Chicago?
Okay. I'm going to be honest and say it is very different. I will say a pro actually of the weather here is that we get seasons. Personally, I've actually really enjoyed this because it really divides up the year and it gives something for you to look forward to. Like, I'm actually kind of excited about like the fact that it's gonna get colder again, and it's like you can have your little coffee shop moment and like drink a latte and stuff like that. But then at the same time, like once winter hits, it is very cold, but you can just layer up and you kind of learn to kind of adjust your lifestyle to it. Um, and then after that, you really look forward to like spring again. And it's just like this whole thing where it's like you keep looking forward to like the next part of the year, which is something that I don't think you get so much like in a more temperate climate like the Bay Area. Um, and Yeah, I will say honestly, the biggest adjustment for me was just the fact that like the sun also does set earlier here, so you might want to consider investing in like a happy light, which is like for fights like seasonal effectiveness, which I personally have. But that alone has like really been a game changer for me. So yeah, that's basically my answer in short, is that it is different, but it's also not different in a bad way, and you can definitely learn to adjust to it as well.
I have a white light therapy lamp available at the Henry Crown Sports Pavilion and Aquatic
Yes.
Center as well.
That's
Yes, our
yeah.
campus recreation team have that available as well. Yeah, kind of thoughts about you know, support services on campus, mental health services, or just kind of like, you know, generally Northwestern kind of community support. Anyone want to share?
Yeah, I can share about that as well. So at Northwestern, we have CAPS, which stands for Counseling and Psychological Services. There's a few different ways that CAPS can help you in terms of your mental well-being. They have like therapists who work directly with CAPS, and then they'll run group therapy sessions, or you can do like kind of more like short-term sessions. Like you can sign up with someone for like I think about 8 sessions, if I remember correctly. Or also CAPS also has an inventory of like mental health professionals in the Chicago area, and a lot of them actually in Evanston, which is how I personally found a therapist, because I've been doing therapy since I was in high school, and I was able to continue that here. A lot of therapists also take like the Northwestern health insurance if you choose to sign up for it, but honestly, it's pretty comparable as well to like if your family has like Blue Shield or Aetna or one of those. So yeah, there's definitely kind of depending on your needs, there's different ways that Northwestern can support you with that.
Yeah, one of the things I like about Northwestern is you have a lot of institutional support, but you also have a lot of like, you kind of have that as your background. You have a lot of student kind of community supporting that as well. And I think that applies to affinity spaces on campus and to kind of support the diversity that we have on campus. Does anyone want to speak to kind of affinity spaces that you've either been a part of or you have friends that have been a part of that you think are important on our campus?
Yeah, there's okay, so I'm Jewish, and there's this Jewish organization on campus. It's actually um pretty new, at least new to me in the last couple of years, and it's been really huge for me recently because it's really, not only is it an organization amongst students, but it's also really like at its core a support group. It's somewhere that you can go and have a place where people are just like seeing in a similar way you are, when a lot of the, you know, a lot of campus can always be like an echo chamber. And so it's nice to be in an area where people are going to support you, no matter like what they're supporting what you're saying and just listening to you. I think like listening is huge here at Northwestern, and people, you know, people love to talk here at Northwestern, but the best thing is that people love to listen. And I think that like my listening skills have very much been tuned in the last 3-ish years because of that. So I'm really grateful for the spaces that Northwestern has created on campus. I will say like students really drive that though. So like most of my like support spaces on campus are, you know, student run, student led, even if they're kind of like institutionally codified by the university. At its core, it's students who are doing the supporting of the peers. So it's a good system because you don't feel like, oh, the university is dictating how I'm going to support my peers. It's the university gives the funds to students to do these things, and then students are able to help one another lift each other up.
Any other thoughts? Um, yeah, go for
I'm
it.
so sorry.
No,
Also
go for it.
about that, I remember there's a group of girls like on my floor freshman year who were all part of like the same like religious organization. This was a Christian organization, and they would like go with each other to church every week. And I know a lot of people who do this sort of thing. If that is something of interest to you, you can also kind of get connected for your own well-being, like both within the Northwestern community and also kind of the greater like Chicago area community by doing things like that. Yeah. I just wanted to
Yeah.
add that.
Yeah, definitely encourage you all to explore our religious and spiritual life pages. You can find kind of that support there, as well as you know, our multicultural student affairs office and our campus inclusion oversees a lot of our really important spaces on campus, like the Black House and Multicultural Center, as well as our new Gender and Sexuality Resource Center. We actually have our LGBTQ plus History Month week happening in a couple of weeks here, where we're gonna do a tour of that new space. Had a question about LGBTQ plus specific resources on campus, so definitely would check out that week so you can hear a little bit more about that as well. And as you've heard everyone touching on, you know, there's a lot of things that are important to Northwestern that I think we would call our Northwestern values, especially when it comes to our community. I really like, Talia, that you said this is a place where you guys learn to listen, and people love to talk at Northwestern, but it's also important to really learn to listen to each other. What are some other values you guys see kind of at Northwestern?
A big one for me is just do it. Like there's no
Nike.
need. Yeah, exactly. There is no need for you to feel embarrassed or self-conscious because everyone is focusing on themselves. And I think at Northwestern, people really embody, oh, like I did tap dance. Actually, a friend of mine who I played soccer with, she did tap dance when she was 10 years old. She said, you know what, I'm gonna try out for Tonic tap dance team. And I think it's really great because if you're afraid, you're never gonna do the things that are really cool. And I think at Northwestern, it's like you really don't have to be afraid because you can try and you can fail, and then you can try at another thing and you can succeed. So like your failure doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, as long as you're trying, you'll succeed with something. Like if like you got here, you have the tools to succeed. And it's really just a matter of like putting yourself out there enough times to really like see that come to fruition.
Really, there's a lot of questions about what is the what's a typical Northwestern student, or what does a typical day look like at Northwestern? I think that encapsulates it well, honestly, of like there's really not one type of Northwestern student, and I think what's cool about it is you just have a lot of students who are excited to come to campus and like encourage their friends to do those things that seem a little silly, or maybe just aren't, you're not you're a little nervous to do. And I really love that about Northwestern. Other thoughts on kind of values or the student community, and then we'll take you guys back to senior year to kind of, yeah, Lily.
I think when I was a tour guide, like a question I got a lot was about like, is Northwestern competitive? Like once you get there, like, is there a lot of competition between students? And my answer to that was always no. Like everyone here is so amazing and like smart and has done like these crazy awesome things. But like throughout my whole 4 years at Northwestern, I never got asked like what I got on my ACT, what my GPA is, like what I got on a specific test. More often than not, classes will, especially larger classes, will create group chats that all of the students will be invited to join. And someone that you do not know, like you could ask a question in that group chat, and that person, that random person that you've never seen before, will take time out of their day to like answer your question on like a homework assignment. And that's just like, it's a super collaborative environment, and there's definitely no like competition. And I think that's also really facilitated by our professors, because I've also gotten the question that's like, do professors do the thing where like half of the class passes and half of the class fails, and like that's just how it works? And the answer is no, that's crazy. It's really just that they want you to succeed and do their best to make as many students in their classes succeed. And so students will encourage other students to do that as well. And I think that speaks a lot about the values that I experienced when I went to Northwestern.
Eloise, you have something to jump in on, or you good?
Oh, I was wondering if I could say something quickly about like
Yeah.
I saw a lot of questions in the chat about this, and I thought I could maybe just quickly answer it.
Please.
So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to get involved in the music school that aren't just like applying into being in as a performance major, even though that's what a lot of people do. You can also be like a general music major, which basically means like you just have to take a certain number of classes, and then you'll get like it's almost like you're majoring in anything else. Like you'll be a music major, but you can also do that like usually on top of another degree, like in top of like a Weinberg degree, for example. And that tends to be a little bit lower requirement than like a performance degree. So a little nitty gritty. I hope that all makes sense. You can also minor in music in Beanin. Like there's a lot of different ways to get involved in Beanin without just like having to really commit to an instrument and practice it multiple hours a day, even though obviously that's what a lot of people do. You can also be just like involved in taking Beanin classes without even having any like commitment to the school. Like Beanin even offers classes that are specifically open to non-majors. If you guys want to also a lot of the ensembles, like so the choirs, like the orchestras, like the jazz bands, they each have like at least one group that is at least open to non-majors, if not specifically for non-majors. And yeah, I think that answers like every question in the chat. I just saw a lot of them, so I wanted to quickly jump in and say that.
No, I appreciate it. Definitely check out, there's a great page called Music for Non-Majors, and it's just a great way to kind of see all of what Eloise was just talking about, particularly if you're interested in pursuing music at Northwestern, not in an academic space. Okay, so we're just at about 10 minutes left here, and I want to make sure that we can get kind of all of your answers for this question. So the question is to take yourself back to senior year a little bit and kind of talk about what made you decide to choose Northwestern early decision. I know we've touched on it a little bit here, and then just kind of what keeps you here, like again, not just like how did you see that come to fruition, but maybe what's something that surprised you about Northwestern, or something that you really love about Northwestern now that keeps you here now. So why did you choose Northwestern to begin with in high school? What keeps you here now? Keeps you in the tour guide program, at the front desk, joining these panels, things like that. And can take a second to think about it, and then we'll have everybody go. You can start maybe with Ariana.
Yeah, I think that I'm stealing this from you, Emily, because I think you said it during one of our like orientations or something, but Northwestern is like the Goldilocks of schools. And I honestly think this is so true. I'm originally from New Jersey, so I grew up kind of close to New York City and definitely always wanted to be kind of in a metropolitan area, and that's like the location completely provides that. I'm not that into sports, so I don't know why this was such a big deal for me applying senior year, but I was like, I need to go to a D1 school, and Northwestern is a D1 school, and I think the school spirit here is definitely unmatched, especially like last year, our basketball program was doing phenomenally, and that was so amazing. We also have so many opportunities for applied learning. In my last 3 years of Northwestern, I've already gotten the chance to obviously do a major, a double minor in things that are like not super related. I've gotten the chance to study abroad, pursue internships during my time on campus. And I just think all of that comes together, and it's really been like the best experience. And obviously, like, I'm sure this may be the rest of your guys' answers, but the reason I'm still here is like so corny. It's the people. I just think the people here are amazing. I think, as Talia said, or maybe Lily, I'm not sure which one, but Northwestern really is so collaborative. And that's something that I definitely didn't expect coming into school. I thought that like the hardest classes would be super competitive. People wouldn't want to work with you. But I found that both in academics, extracurriculars, people at Northwestern are always willing to help, whether you're an underclassman, an upperclassman. I might like barely know somebody, but see that they're doing something cool, and I'll just like find a friend who knows them, or like literally DM them or something and be like, can I ask you about your experience doing this? And people are so receptive, whether that's even students or also alumni. So I honestly think Northwestern has like everything in terms of location, academics, social life, that I could ever ask for. And I am so happy I'm here.
I can go next. I remember I'm a current senior, which means I graduated high school in 2021. All to say that I applied during COVID. And I remember I basically went with my dad like on a work trip to the Midwest because I had a week off of school, and that's basically we just ended up touring colleges in the Midwest. This was my junior year, like right before COVID, and I just happened to have gotten to visit Northwestern. Obviously didn't get to tour a lot of schools. But then what happened was I came to Northwestern and my tour guide was named Ellie, which is also my name. So I was already like, this is a sign. And then after that, it's almost like I felt just a gut feeling like this is a place for me. And honestly, I would recommend to anyone, if you feel that at a school, like really, at the very least, really look into that school. And then I kept thinking about like what I wanted a college experience. And I already mentioned this, but I came into Northwestern like really not knowing what I wanted to do, and Northwestern had so many like opportunities for that. Or just like there were so many different paths that I knew I would be able to explore like already once I got to Northwestern. And so just for that reason, I was like, this is the right school for me. So I applied early decision, and full transparency, I did not think I was going to get in because I knew that Northwestern was a very competitive school. And then Also, I forgot to mention this. I was also really interested in music, and Northwestern obviously has the Bean in School. And so I got to like pursue also music at a conservatory level while also pursuing an academic degree. And that's honestly something that you can't do at a lot of schools. So that also really made Northwestern stand out for me. So just for all those reasons, I would say it was a combination of like a gut feeling and also kind of like thinking through the logistics of what exactly I wanted out of my college career. And since they both lined up so well with Northwestern, I knew that this was a place that was worth applying early for me.
I completely want to echo everything that you all just said. And to kind of like for a different take, I say like the campus was huge for me. Before my junior year of high school, I had never heard of Northwestern. I don't know if that's good or a bad thing, but I came to campus and it was like it was a dark and kind of rainy day. And I just remember, like Eloise was saying, having just like some kind of feeling in my stomach, like there are bunnies hopping around. And to me, that was just like, whoa, like I want to go somewhere where there are bunnies hopping around constantly. And the campus is really green. And if you haven't seen the campus, I'll like lay it out for you. It's like buildings, there's a lot of green space. Green space is all covered by Wi-Fi. We have this huge lake fill. Um, and then I think when I came to Northwestern, because I had only been here and like, it was the middle of November, a rainy day, I was just absolutely floored by how beautiful this place is. And I still catch myself like jaw dropped in so many different parts of campus, whether it's during the fall and you see the leaves changing on South Campus, or you're at North Campus on our lakeside field and you're looking at the lake and you also see like the skyline of downtown Chicago, right? Just like Emily's background right now. I truly like this is a like gorgeous place. And I think it makes being here so much more exciting because I'm excited to go to campus every day. I want to, sit on the rocks by the lake and hang out with my friends. And I just think it's this is such a place that is so close to me now. Like this is what I call home now. And I think I wouldn't have gotten that out of school where it was just the academics for me because I know we say this a lot. There are a lot of schools, a lot of good academics. And obviously, as you all have heard, like the academics here were really important to me. But when it came down to it, like this is a place where I knew I could feel really connected to the campus and connected to the university. And that was like at the end of the day, what was most important for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I already talked a little bit about why I chose Northwestern for early decision, um, which is that I just really realized it was the perfect place for me that had a lot of flexibility. But I absolutely agree that the campus is gorgeous and it's like just like an amazing place to be, and like you feel how like lively it is with all the students. And obviously I love it enough that I came back and I work there every day now, and I get to sit in our beautiful admissions office and like stare at the lakefront, and it's awesome. And so like Northwestern, choosing Northwestern for early decision is like truly I think one of like the best decisions I've made for myself so far. And it was like a hard decision. It's tough. And like I encourage you, Citlali Delgado, who is my boss, has a really, or was it Alyssa? One of our awesome admissions officers has a really awesome metaphor, which is that if you're given 3 envelopes and you can choose, you can be given 1 envelope. And if you open it and there's an acceptance and you're okay with the other 2 envelopes being taken away and not knowing what's inside them, then you should apply early decision because you're okay with, as long as you got accepted to the one school that you're interested in, you don't care about if you got accepted to these other schools because all that matters is this one school. So I think that's a really great way to think about whether or not you should apply early decision to any school.
Love the kind of notes y'all are hitting on. What kind of something Talia said. Just love to remind everybody that these 4 years, like it's gonna be, you're gonna be going to classes and you're gonna be in clubs, but like you're also just gonna be living here for 4 years. Like you're choosing a home for the next 4 years, a place that you're gonna live, a campus and a community that you're gonna be a part of. And that's why it's such a tough decision, because that feels like a really big decision. And the reality is that there are going to be a lot of campuses where you could definitely feel at home. And I hope that Northwestern is one of them. But I think kind of the step with early decision is exactly what Lily was saying, is kind of making that decision or that realization. I love the shocked emojis that are happening. Am I so sure about this place being a home that I don't really care if the other places could also be home? Am I so sure that I'm excited about Northwestern as a potential place for the next 4 years that I don't really need to know if I could live anywhere else. Anyway, that's a kind of nice way to wrap it up. I think I'm sending some information into the chat, a YouTube playlist that I think is really helpful. I had some questions about, like, how do I make my activities section stand out, and what's good stuff to talk about in my essays. This YouTube playlist goes through every single piece of the application, and it has our admissions directors giving you advice on each piece of the application. So I definitely go in there and click on the section that you're most interested in learning about and check it out. The other thing I'll note here is just our application kind of requirements and materials and everything. This is just on our website. This is where, like, our details on the deadlines and what you need and what your materials are. All of that is listed here. We got rid of our alumni interviews this year, so we don't have those, but you can still talk to alumni just like you can talk to current students. So make sure to request conversations with alumni. Make sure to request conversations with Purple Preview, our current student conversation forum, and make sure to check out our new Glimpse videos. It's just another opportunity to kind of highlight a little bit about yourself in your application. Really quick videos just of yourself to kind of supplement that by adding your personality, since we took away those interviews. All right. That is all we have for you. Thank you all so much. Make sure to reach out to your regional representatives if you have additional questions. Link for that is just in the chat now. Thanks for joining us. Thank you to all of our students for joining us as well. We love Northwestern. Go Cats, everyone. Thank you, guys.
Bye.